Hello, everybody. How's it going? We'll go ahead and bow in. Oyashimasu. So, tonight, it's not really a chapter, but it is a section in the book that I wanted to cover, and it's called Saikontong, Chinese Philosophy. So, for those of you who may not know, this is actually a book, and the book is in which I have a copy of one of the translations. It's called The Roots of Wisdom, Saikontong, written by Hung Ying Ming, and the version I have was translated by William Scott Wilson. It means vegetable root discourse. There's nothing fancy. It's just plain spoken reminders to basically awaken you to the present moment. So I'll read just the introduction, small paragraph from the book that I have, a copy I have. At once profound, spiritual, and witty master of the three ways, is a remarkable work about human nature, the essence of life, and how to live simply and with awareness. In 357 verses, the author, Hong Ying Ming, a 17th century Chinese sage, explores good and evil, honesty and deception, wisdom and foolishness, and heaven and hell. He draws from the wisdom of the three creeds, Taoism, Confucianism, and Zen Buddhism, to impress upon us that by combining simple elegance with the ordinary, we can make our lives artistic and poetic. These themes repeatedly spill over into each other, creating multiple levels of meaning. So, why is this in the book? So, all most of you know Suzuki Sensei was a police officer, and from that experience, he learned to take a lot of notes and to keep a lot of information. Some people might say he was a pack rat. I like to think of it as that he kept pretty much everything. In fact, Curtis Sensei is kind of the opposite. He likes to throw away everything. So he would go through and, I mean, he would just throw away, oh, we don't need this, we don't need that, we don't need this. And Suzuki Sensei on the other hand was just the opposite. So I asked Curtis Sensei, I said, oh, Sensei, I said, how did these five phrases that are in the book out of 300, how did these five make it in the book? And he said, oh, yeah, they were written down on a piece of paper in one of the drawers in the office, and I liked them, so we put them in the book. And Suzuki Sensei got them from somewhere, and of course we all know that he got them from Toy Sensei. And if you read Will Reed's book, or if you've studied with Shaner Sensei, you'll know that this Saikontong was a heavily influence in Toy Sensei's training. And with this, uh, what this brought up in me is basically how I trained when I started in 1995. In 97, I got the very first time I got, this book, this manual, the second edition. It was the first time I'd ever seen it. I think it was the first time I'd ever left Japan. It was I think it was in 95. Um, and Curtis Sensei and Suzuki Sensei brought a case of the books to the Arizona dojo, and we purchased them and sold them um, at our location. And I remember going through it, and I remember going, "Oh, it's like Tom. I wonder what this is." I read it, and I said, "Oh yeah, these are nice little quotes. That little things that you can meditate on." And I remember talking to Ed Grover Sensei, and Ed Grover Sensei was a longtime practitioner from Southern California. And I said, and Ed and I used to email back and forth when I lived in Arizona quite a bit. And I emailed him and said, hey, I looked up this Saikontong, and this is right in the infancy of the internet. And there was different places you could buy used books. And I said, I'm looking up, and this book, Saikontong, I realized it's a book and nobody has it. It's completely out of print. You know, do you know where I could get a copy? And Ed being Ed goes, as a matter of fact, I have a copy and I'll mail it to you. So he mailed me a copy of the book, and it happened to be the William Scott Wilson translation, which at the time was one of the only translations out there. Now, if you go on Amazon, there's tons of other translations. In fact, probably better translations than the one I have. But that being said, it brought about, oh, how did I train back then when I was always just like a sponge for information? And it's kind of like when you get a book, a really good book that you like, I would go right to the bibliography and go, what inspired them to write this book? And I would go through and read the bibliographies to try to find other books that either influence the author or influence what they wrote. And that's kind of what brought this up. These 5 phrases that Suzuki Sensei and Curtis Sensei liked are in the book. They have one common theme. If you've read them, they have one common theme. That is mind. How do you use your mind? I mean, if you read those over and over again, you think, what does it fall back on? How to use your mind. So I'd like to, open it up and see what did you get out of these quotes? Did you like them? Have any of you read Saikontong? I know right before this class started, John uh, asked me to go into a little room, and he goes, "Is this book really called Vegetable Root Discourse?" And I went, "Yeah, I'm going to explain that in the class tonight." Yeah, I Googled it. I've never heard of this book, and of course I was like, "Well," I said, "here's your chance. We'll have a little discussion about it tonight, and you can know a little bit more." But I will say, if you follow the EKF website or the EKF YouTube channel, you know, Shainer Sensei's done a 4-hour comprehensive discussion on this book. He's a scholar. I'm just a regular guy. So this, to me brings up, how do we train? How do we use our mind? This was influential for Toy Sensei, so obviously he's thought of it as extremely important. Suzuki Sensei obviously picked out 5 verses that spoke to him. In fact, I was reading one of the verses when I read the book, one of the verses that spoke to me that's not in this. I'll read to you right now. It says, "Be fully open and put up no barriers. In this way, you become one substance with the origin of the universe." I like that one. That one spoke to me a little bit. It's not in here, it's in the book. So I'm sure out of 300 and some odd verses, if you did get the book, you'd find something that really, wow, I really like that. So, that being said, Lily and Paiva Sensei, how are you tonight? Do you like this uh, section of our manual, Aikido on Maui, this Chinese philosophy section?
Hello, Sensei. Hello, everybody. the the page that's written there on page 56, I love it. I really do. And I didn't realize it was a book all this time. I just thought it was something that was picked up somewhere. So now I may be on Amazon looking for this book because this is really great. But I'm kind of laughing too because you pick me a lot first. And I don't consider myself particularly profound, definitely not a scholar, sometimes not even comprehensible, you know. So it's kind of interesting because when I read this, what comes to mind first is always that phrase that it's so simple, but not easy.
Right.
And that's what I get out of this. Is just it's sort of a brain common sense, a mind common sense, you know. All this stuff, it's saying that we are just getting in our own way. We are just all the things that we learn in all of these classes. And I just love it. I was actually thinking, oh, I wonder why I never Xerox this and put this up on the wall to contemplate more often, you know, to reread more often. But yeah, I'm definitely inspired to read the book. And like I said, to me, it's awesome. And I'm just going to work you on doing the easy part, making it easier, not fighting with things so much. So that's about as
Yeah.
profound as I'm going to get.
Well, yeah. I mean, and the reason I do call on you is you're one of the others. You're one of the. You have your own dojo. You're a teacher, and I like to hear your input. So that's why I call on you first because you're used to being on up front of people. It breaks the ice for the other people to go. Oh
Oh,
yeah, it's okay to talk.
well, thank you, Sensei.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I say this a lot in my introductory classes. Aikido's really simple. It's just not easy. Everything we do is very simple, step by step by step. But we tend to put our own I am self into it and make it more complicated than it really is. I say this, it's kind of like um, the three points that we test on Shodan. Posture, line of sight, and what's the third one? Line of sight, posture, and Ma'i, space. Those 3 points I teach my managers when I have like these manager things. I teach them, are you connected with your subordinates? You know, are you giving the space they need to do their job? Are you hovering over them? I mean, these three very simple principles that we have for Shodan, it can be used in business, it can be used in everyday life. We tend to think of them only in an Aikido sense of, oh, to do this technique, I have to have impeccable posture, and I have to have my line of sight perfect, and I have to have proper space with my uke. And we tend to get wrapped up in that a lot in the physical techniques. But if you just step back and go, oh yeah, this is really good for just connecting with regular folks, you know, uh, and then you can, once you can realize it yourself, then of course you can teach it to others, connect with others, and make it a part of your sense of being. So yeah, I get that a lot from my managers. Where did you learn this? I've never heard of this before, and I just tell them, well, it's just about training. You just gotta be able to, you know, it's key in daily life. Is what it is. So with that being said, I see John's back. He was stepped away for a bit, but I see he's back now. I'll ask Kaomi. Kaomi, are you familiar with Saikontong? How are you this evening?
Oh, I'm doing well. Thank you, Vincent. And hello, everybody. I only time I heard of Saikontong was I was reading the Tohei Sensei's book, and then he was very like a sick child, and he wanted to be strong inside, and then that's when he started reading Saikontong. That's all I know. I have never read it before.
And this is the book in Japanese, right? You read his Japanese book.
Yes. I was reading a book in Japanese, and he was describing how his childhood to, I think his sister recommended or something, and yeah,
Yeah, this is when he was sick with pleurisy after studying judo for a time, and his sister did recommend, I think, this book, and then of course Yamaoka Teshu's book. Those two heavily influenced Toy Sensei's training in life, and in fact, he used this book when he was going through officer candidate school. It's a form. He was in the Japanese Army, and he was in the he went through officer candidate school. And of course, I know from when I hear these stories about him going through officer candidate school, I relate it to when I went through Marine Corps boot camp. And you're they break you down to work as a group, and people are always commiserating and complaining on the side. And of course Toy Sensei he had memorized a lot of the phrases in the Saikontong, and he had written them in his diary, right? Well, yeah, guess what? People don't realize this, but in the military, there's no privacy in the military. So of course, they would invade your privacy and read they would read my letters. I would get letters from my girlfriend or my family, and they would sit up and read the letters in front of everybody, and people would be hooting and hollering and having a good time about it. Well, when they read Toy Sensei's diary, everybody else is complaining, and he's like writing these philosophical poems from Saikontong. So, of course, I'm sure he got a ration of crap from the other people in that platoon of his. But anyway, it's really interesting. So you've never read the book yourself. You just kind of read from Toy Sensei's.
Yeah, just they learned the name of the title. And
Yeah.
I'm just curious, since I didn't even go look and try to read, but who is this? This is a poem, right? You said.
It's a series of like, what do you call them? It's like little quotes.
Quotes.
Yeah,
So
little
I'd like to know
quotes.
what's the quotes about, and I also like to know who are these quotes written for.
I don't know who they're written for. I think they're just philosophy.
Philosophy.
Yeah, and you can find there's lots of Japanese translations of this
Okay.
book. This is it's actually quite famous in Japan for philosophers, and I think we'll find a lot of translations. In fact, some of the best translations come out of Taiwan. Because they were Chinese, they were brought to Taiwan when they left, and then Taiwan and Japan have a link from World War II. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think you'll like it. It's rather dense. I think it's very philosophical, or good to contemplate on.
Thank you. I'll read that one. Thank you.
So Fincher Sterling, you're here tonight, and what about you? What do you like these 5 discourses that are in the Maui manual there?
Oh, there we go. Hello, Sensei. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I like them a lot. And I've never read the book either. So it's, well, the ones that they picked, of course, aligns a lot with what we're taught in Aikido, which is not to focus on what you think is good and how you want to change things, but like it says here, there was a one part. Well, when we think things are going well, everything around us has the potential of being our enemy. Only we fail to see it. And I'm doing it in reverse. When we are in difficulty, everything around us has the potential of being our ally. Only we fail to notice it. So, I mean, to me, that really voices attachment to our personality and how we want to control things, and collapse. When everything is going well, we're just hanging out and relaxing and not worrying about everything. So it's really it's the juxtaposition approach that we hear a lot in Aikido. Like when when an opponent is attacking, if you're attaching to the opponent, well, then you're not going to be able to move with them. You're not going to be able to see what's going on. And a lot of this, like what it brings to mind, I was told many, many years ago by a friend of mine, is that if you're going to save money, don't focus on saving money, because then you're going to put a dollar away here, you're going to squeeze out $5 here or there. Focus on your spending, and saving happens automatically. You focus on your spending. So that's what it brought to mind, that you know, and what we talked about the other night in your class, and in breathing, you know, don't focus on the breathing. And Sensei said this too. You don't focus on every element of your breathing. You focus past your breathing. So I really love the, you know, how it relates to a lot of the things that we're being trained in. And how many years ago? I'm sorry, I missed the first minute of your class. How many years ago was this written?
Oh, this was written in like the 17th century. It was written a long time ago. Yeah, and if you look, I mean, if you just read some of those, you can see the shokushu, where the shokushu came from. You know, Toy Sensei's influence, being influenced by Saikontong and other things in his life, brought about the shokushu. And from there, key in daily life. And from there, you know, everything he's taught, you know, and we all have our influences, and this happened to be one of his. And, you know, most people don't know it was a book. I don't think even Curtis Sensei at the time knew it was a book, because Suzuki Sensei had. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, if you went to the office back when Suzuki Sensei had the office, he had these old office desks from like the military, and he had these old filing metal cabinets just stuffed to the brim full of stuff. And you know, I could just see them opening a drawer up and going and seeing these 5 things written on a piece of paper, going, oh yeah, these are pretty good, let's put these in the book. You know, I could just totally see that, because that's how Suzuki Sensei kind of was, in a sense. You know, he thought this was really important, and he would save it. He had these, when I went to his house, he had these manila folders stuffed full of articles that he'd clipped out of Reader's Digest, newspapers, you know, stuff from everything from jokes to stories to training things to quotes. He was really into cultivating that stuff, and just showed how he was always learning, always, always learning. You know, he never rested on his laurels. He always was training, you know, whether it be, you know, always keep breathing every morning, always doing his meditation, teaching the classes, you know, even in his free time, he was training, in a sense, you know, and yeah, these quotes are just, you know, just a taste of the whole book that he happened to like, and they, you know, they put it in there, and they put Saikontong Chinese philosophy, and I think it's really good. But you can totally see how these relate to our current shokushu, you know, just reading some of them. So, Phoenix, how are you tonight?
I was muted.
I know.
So a little trouble following. I haven't read them, and so I don't think I must have skipped over that part of the manual, but I'm listening. I appreciate that. See how they're all connected together, particularly that's how they, you know, one of the genesis for the shokushu is really interesting to me. So if there's a short one you could read, that would be very
Sure.
helpful.
This is on page 56 of our manual, and it's in between the breathing and meditation section. You know, kind of in a perfect spot. You know, Curtis Sensei chose like the perfect spot for this, between, you know, key breathing, key meditations. He takes this one page and says Saikontong, something for people to contemplate. I'll read the first one. It says, "The calmness which you find at rest is not true calmness. Only the calmness which you find in action is genuine." I mean, that's right there. I mean,
right.
Basically almost word for word from one of the shokushu, you know? So I think, you know, it's kind of interesting. But so let me ask you a question, Phoenix. When you use this manual, or when you come across Aikido books that you like, how do you go about reading? Do you read them from cover to cover? Do you read them, you know, do you use chapters? Do you read the bibliography or anything like that? What's your technique?
I think while I looked at the manual when I first started, what I really read cover to cover was Letting Go. And
Yes.
I think that because it connected with the seminars that I that just sort of documenting what happened at the seminars. It was a great way to kind of go back through that. And then I picked up the manual more as I learned that there was a lot of etiquette that I wasn't doing, just realizing what my gaps were, going also and just looking up other basics about testing and all those kinds of things. But I haven't sat down and read it cover to cover. And it occurs to me that it'd be a good time to do that.
Well, I wouldn't say you have to read it from cover to cover, but it's always good to pick up,
Right.
go through the index. I always tell people, go through the index, see a chapter that spurs interest, and read it. Take a look, and you won't find, and then when, like if you're reading about breathing, and then when you, oh yeah, there's meditation, and then you see a page with, what's this Chinese philosophy? Looks interesting. And then, when I read it, I instantly think of the Shokushu, of course, and yeah.
Well, it's definitely made me curious to go find those 5 quotes. So.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's what these classes are kind of for, is to kind of open up the book to other people and see, spark interest in sections they may not have read or come across. Thanks. So, Jan, how are you tonight?
Hi, Sensei, I'm fine.
Good. My section, you're like right above Phoenix. So when I just looked up, oh, there's Jan. Just ask her.
I'm really glad that you've been going through the manual. I've had the manual for years, but I guess I never have gone through it. And this is a real gem, this page. You think you're getting closer, getting it, and you realize such a long more ways to go. I like the first one, the calmness which you find at rest is not true calmness. The only calmness which you find in action is genuine. I think I wouldn't have never thought of that, but so true.
Right. Yeah, I like that one too. I think that's a really good, of the 5, that's a perfect one to lead off with.
And I enjoyed Fincher Sensei's about saving money instead of thinking about saving money to watch your spending. I think that's a good one too. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. I was listening to, in fact, it was in, I think Shaner Sensei is one of his classes. He said, I've written a book on dieting. It's 3 words: eat less, exercise more. Because that's simple. That's very simple. Eat less, exercise more. And it's kind of the same thing with saving money, or investing, buy low, sell high. I mean, it's simple, and sometimes we think of it as too simple because we miss it because it's so simple. We think it should be more complicated than this. Aikido is very difficult. So, but actually, if you really look at it, it's basics are the basics. They never really change. We get caught up in all these changes. We love drama in a sense. That's why we like going to the movies and seeing all the drama spill out right in front of us in a 2-hour format. So yeah, I like that. So John, you took me aside and said you'd never heard of this book, The Roots of Wisdom.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Hi, Sensei. Sorry about earlier. Had an emergency. Okay. Yeah, it reminds me of the Dhammapada, and these are it's very much similar to the 423 verses of the Buddha's quotes and stuff. And it just kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, and since I don't think you were here, I read, these are based on the 3 creeds of back then: Taoism, Confucianism, and Zen Buddhism. So that's heavily influenced by these 3.
Yeah, words of wisdom is, I think, universal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it applies to all of humanity and people.
So did you come across this section in the manual before?
for some reason it disappeared on me. I must have read it, but then it just like.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm surprised. What's her name's not here tonight because she said, "Oh, I really like that." You know, she wanted to bring it into last week's chapter. I was like, "No, no, no. We're going to cover that separately."
Right.
Even though it's not a chapter, it's not. It's between meditation. It's between the breathing chapter and the meditation chapter. And I felt so strongly that I felt it needed a class unto itself, just because of the history behind it. You know, why Suzuki Sensei thought these 5 specifically were so important that he wrote down, you know, by hand, you know, and saved. You know, I remember talking to him, and I think he at the time I was, you know, asking him, oh, you know, oh, what's this section of Saikontong? And I remember, oh, it's a really, really good book. You should read it. But that's all he would ever say. He wouldn't say, like, he wouldn't give these drawn out discussions on it. He would just go, oh yeah, that's really good. You should read it. You know, just do it. You know, he was one of those. He was one of those guys that would just go, yeah, I did it, so you should do it, and not say anything. You know, it's kind of like his precepts on breathing. Yes, breathe every day for 1 hour. In 5 years, come back and tell me. And then in 5 years, you come back. Oh, 10 years, come back and tell me. You know, in 15 years, 20 years, of course, it's infinite number of times to go back. That was just his style, and that's what we loved so much about him.
You were thinking about Gloria, by the way.
Oh, Gloria, yeah. I'm surprised I'm not here. But she'll catch it on YouTube, I'm sure. Yeah. Anything else, John, you want to comment
on? So sorry, I'm just rattled from my earlier emergency. So I'm also trying to put down the 5 Saikontons on from the manual, and I'm wondering if that's the correct one.
I don't know. I'm not looking at the chat, but people can check.
Okay. But
no worries.
Quick question: is it the same from the old manual?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're the same. Went back and checked, and they have not changed since. I think they first came in on the second edition.
Okay.
You know, the first edition never really left Maui. I have a copy of it. Second edition was the very first. 1995 was the very first copy that came out with this in it, and yeah, I compared it last night and took a look, and there.
Okay. Exactly. Great. I put it in the chat room so people can take a look at it, copy and paste, and read it later for themselves.
Yeah. And I see you're holding up the third edition. That's a good edition. That came out in like 2000, I think, year 2000, when they had the grand opening, right before the grand opening. So, who would like to talk? Ilaria, she's right below John. I'll pick her. Ilaria, did you discover this section of the manual there? Chinese philosophy, Saikontong?
Hi, Sensei. Hi, everyone. I've never discovered it. No, this is my first time hearing about it. So I would say, like, when I read it, there's the first quote, and then to me, the second and the third quote go into depth more to explain the first quote more in depth, like with examples. That's kind of how I saw it. And then the fourth one kind of takes a turn, and the second sentence in the fourth quote really jumped out at me. Intention is the feet of the mind.
Yeah.
It will, if not controlled, it will carry you forthwith down the wrong path.
Right.
And that's something to contemplate. And I kind of thought of it. It reminded me of willpower and how in every moment we have the choice to basically to keep one point or not. Right. And I don't know, it seems related. There's something there.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting. It's interesting to hear you guys say, wow, I've never found this part, this little, you know, page. They kind of skim over it, or, you know, between the meditation and breathing chapter. And I find that very interesting. I'm so glad we're covering it. And you're right. You know, willpower, Toi Sensei's Shokushu on willpower, you know, is so well written and so good. That's one of my favorites, I think. And And yeah, intention, talking about intention, and of course that corresponds hand in hand with attention. And we're always talking about what do you give your attention to, how do you use your awareness, what are you distraction and how that affects your attention, and of course, using your attention to have the right intention. Uh, Kind of what you were getting at, and willpower. But yeah, I like that a lot. How about you, Jeremy? See you there tonight.
Hi, Sensei. Hi, everybody.
Was it my email, that my little text message? Hey, Jeremy, don't miss tonight's class. That's why you're here, right?
Yes, exactly. I have to apologize. My internet is unstable. It's not keep 1 point right now. So I'm missing some of the audio. It also might cut me a little bit. But yeah, I was fascinated. And I found really interesting that you're saying about the source, because I have that same, I love learning, oh, where does this come from? So I didn't know that, where the Shakshu inspiration came from that. So I'm actually very curious. Phoenix mentioned about the etiquette, and I'm curious if there is one of in the book, the original book, if there is something specifically that calls your attention towards etiquette there.
Phoenix, what do you think of
Does it
this?
make sense?
Question. Oh, you're still muted, Phoenix.
Not in these, well, I didn't look at the sayings to see it's in there, but the etiquette is kind of threaded throughout the book, but particular, I don't remember what chapters, but once I realized that people around me were doing things I wasn't doing, I went to read the book. So just on everything from how you enter the mat to any number. There's just a whole list of different things in the manual. It was very helpful for me, and I still go back to it now and go back to it before I help children with children's class, that kind of thing. So just a good toolbox.
Yeah, exactly. Anything else, Jeremy? Did you like this page on Chinese philosophy there, Saikontong?
Yeah, it's great. That's what I was wondering. Like you have like some that seem like you mentioned, like specifically like it's almost like word by word, right? From what you read there, the translation. But then on more like a not so visible aspect, like what else could you enlighten us about like inspirations that came into Aikido and that was that basically was shared, for that? Does it make sense?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and we'll definitely cover more. Toy Sensei's influence was really written out in the Red Velvet book, that last book that he ever wrote, and that has a lot of explaining, his three teachers. Because everybody just thinks, oh yeah, Toy Sensei was taught by Morihei Ueshiba Sensei, that was it, but actually that's not the case. He had, Tempu Nakamura, he has Tetsuya Ogura from Yamaoka Teshu School, Ichikukai. So yeah, there's that. And then, just, and this goes back to how I trained myself in a sense, and that was always looking for to go deeper, not being satisfied with just what somebody said or where the book came from. Is look in the bibliography, find out, experience. In the beginning, you're on the path to experiencing things. So when you're on that path, I always think not only are we experience, we have to learn to experience it ourselves, but where is the source? What influenced so and so? I always was, Suzuki Sensei would stand up and go, "I'm not bragging, folks. I'm here to inspire you," and that was, by him saying that, the inspiration, that I got from that was to train, not just be comfortable. Don't just rest on your laurels. Don't be comfortable. You know, go deeper. What else? What else can we do? I mean, that's I mean, it's kind of obvious. I mean, I'm not the most eloquent guy in the world, and you know, like when I asked Otsuka Sensei about the breathing thing that I told the story last week. I mean, I was just like, I was really curious. I really wanted to know about it, and of course, I did, but of course, it was very embarrassing, of course, for me. But I was okay with it. I was willing to do whatever it took, in a sense. Oh my goodness. So let's see. Vitali, you're here. I see you.
Hello, Sensei. Hello, everybody. Unfortunately, I couldn't read this book. I have heard about this book for the first time, but thanks to John, he sent to everyone some 5 phrases from page 87 in the old manual. I read it, and the very interesting for me is the second. Similarly, the peace of mind which you find in requirements is not true place of mind. The only peace of mind you find in the midst of struggle is a peace of mind. And the third one, when you are difficulty, everything around us has a potential being of our ally, and only fail to notice it. And things are going well, everything around us has potential of being our enemy, only the fail is to see it. It's the idea I faced very, very often in my life. I think it's state of mind is the driver of all. Is the driver of all what is happened around us in one period of time. I have read this phrase for the first time today, and it's very similar to my ideas that I cannot formulate earlier. It's what about me.
Oh yeah, that's great. It's a true peace of mind. The quote that's in there I really like too. It's kind of like when I was you always think, oh, I'm going to have the perfect meditation session, and you're maybe in the midst of meditation and the guy next door starts weed whacking, and you hear this loud noise and you're like, what the first thing that comes to my mind was, can he do that some other time, because I'm meditating right now. You're ruining my meditation. But learning to include that in your meditation is what really it's all about. And it took me a while to kind of figure that out, because I would get kind of pissed off when people would not respect my time. Hey, the neighbor should time his weed whacking around my meditation. I mean, seriously, that's how I thought. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I learned that no, I have to, include that in my meditation. Like when things are going wrong, you can't sometimes start over. You got to deal with what's going on, like right now, like any kind of emergency, any kind of accident, any kind of incident, you got to deal with it. And by not making a decision, you're still making a decision, even it's to ignore it. The ostrich method doesn't work, with life. And people don't know that. I mean, the life is merely the sum of all the decisions you've made. Every decision you make in your life is at the end of your life is gonna be right there. You're the sum of it. So what you choose to do, you know, is important, you know, and I think these phrases kind of simplify it enough so that the common man, I mean, that's why it's called the root vegetable discourse in a sense, is because back in the day, tasteless root vegetables is what the poor people ate, you know, and they had to make the best of it. And that's kind of where I think, you know, simple things to guide you is the best. Don't make it complicated. Keep it simple. So, Sasaki Sensei, I see you're here. You've joined us. Called on you towards the end so you could get a little taste of, you know, we're talking about Saikontong here.
Well, truthfully, I kind of skimmed through the manual when I first got it, although it took months for it to be delivered to me. And the first place I actually went to was pressing with ki. And then I went to breathing because they were related in doing that, and meditation. But I did skim over that page and I just thought, oh, are these the basis of the key sayings?
Right.
You know?
Because there's, I mean, it's like you could tell some of them are
Yeah.
right from there. And that's good. That's great.
But yeah, the first thing I did was go to Kiatsu.
Oh, yeah. So you just ordered the book from Amazon and just got it?
Oh, it took a long time. Yeah, I got it months ago, but when I ordered it, it took a couple of months. More than a couple of months. I complained about it to Curtis Sensei. But I finally got it.
We do the best we can with it. You know, we're printing it. It's on demand printing. I think that's probably why.
I even have those little pamphlets from the time of in the 70s.
Yes, I have those too. Yes, they're very old. Yes, and this is on page 56 of the new manual. I know John is quoting from the 3rd edition, so different page number. Page 56 is the new current edition.
I really didn't, you know, delve into it. I just thought, oh, these must be the roots of the key sayings, you know, where a lot of that originated from or was refined by Tohei Sensei for Aikido and daily living. So
right. Thanks.
Can't go deep
Hi,
on it.
Ladini. Are you? Yeah.
Hi,
Are
Sensei.
you open to talking tonight, Ladini?
Sure, Sensei. Hi, everyone. I must have read through it at some point and completely, you know, forgot them when you started talking about them tonight. In fact, I asked John if he could type them in when he went on his emergency. But I mean, I think that, you know, whatever the philosophical underpinnings for Aikido are always interesting, where they come from, because I just accept it as fact. Like, you know, this is what Curtis Sensei is writing. I don't know where it came from. So it's interesting to know, you know, sort of the depth of where some of the philosophy is coming from and what it adds to the practice for me. You know, I just read through what he was writing, and I recognize some from the Shokushu too, like the moon reflecting on water and some of those kinds of things. But one of the things that I was thinking about was this sense of, you know, the sayings that you have to sit with them a long time. They're very meaty and weighty. It's not, I can read them and be, oh yeah, I get it. But not really, you know, I have to kind of sit and then I would make it I would overcomplicate it. You know, it might appear very simple, but it's not. You know, there's this, what struck me is this strong sense of duality. You know, it's like, oh, be calm, but it only, you know, only when you're in a state of conflict or anxiety. It only really manifests. It only is true in those states. But, you know, why does it have to be that way? Why do you always have to have a state of conflict to recognize, you know, when your mind is calm? Like all of them seem to have that sense of duality. One wouldn't exist with the other. That was just something kind of going out around my head when I was looking at those. And maybe Aikido in general. There's, you know, one doesn't exist without the other. I don't know. That's,
Yeah, I see your methods there, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. It's, you know, Toy Sensei always says, choose plus, choose plus mind. And then you think, well, what about negative, And then we always are faced with this, because this relative sense, because we're in this, relative world that we're living in here. We have you can't recognize one without the other. You can't, recognize good without bad. You can't recognize sour without sweet, and that's just the way it is. And like in the it said, the themes repeatedly spill over into each other, creating multiple levels of meaning. And then as you train, things change. Just because you see something one way now, it does not mean you'll see it the same way later. And I've seen that happen just in my limited experience and being with Curtis Sensei, and things I totally disagreed with him on strongly and would tell him so privately. I now think, oh yeah, that's what he was after, or that's why, because I didn't realize maybe the deeper meaning of things, or the political nature of something. I was always like, well, it doesn't matter, let's just do this, I'm all, just move ahead, and sometimes you can, you got to be a little more, you got to, instead of using a hammer, got to sometimes use a scalpel with things. And that's kind of where, with these sayings, just these limited sayings, and even in the Shokushu, I mean, that's why we had these, every Shokushu got a class, and, Curtis Sensei went through the translations again with Sayaka, and really, gave some deeper meaning, understanding, to Toy Sensei's thought process, and why he felt these were important, why we read them before class, and in fact, some of these, and that's why you see the Saikontong is, Toy Sensei called upon that, as a reference for when in his training and how he saw it in his life. I think that's really good. We have a few people, let's see here, that's just joined us. Anybody else would like to say something? Lucky, Charlotte, Jack, Martha. I'm open if you want to say
Sorry, something. I just wanted to add one more thing.
Okay, John.
Yeah, so it's so funny because everything Ladini was saying, I was thinking the opposite. Because I was thinking, oh, these sayings are so matter of fact, simple, and that, like, if you sat down and you thought about it, and the words came to you, you would be like, right, this is, So I thought, oh yeah, but of course we all have different perspectives, right? And we all analyze it differently. So hi.
Yeah, and it all depends on where you're at in your training. Curtis Sensei always likes to say that, this makes sense for you at this level, but it will change later on. And we tend to think that. I mean, and I always do say the basics never change, of course, basics. But of course, that's just the foundation. And you're training, you're building a house, and the house is going to change over time. And how you see and perceive that and how you change the house or remodel the house is going to change, but the foundation is always going to be there. You may tear down the house and rebuild it, or, redo the bedroom or the bathroom with new stuff, but the foundation's always there. Yeah, so it always depends. Oh, Phoenix, you're raising your hand.
It's just such a good discussion, and I'm completely taken with the one that is, when we are in difficulty, everything around us has the potential of being our ally, only we fail to notice it. When things are going well, everything around us has the potential of being our enemy, only we fail to see it.
Yeah.
I just think about, it just hits me how much it makes sense to me now because of Aikido. That I have plenty of difficulty, but when I'm having difficulty, I'm aware of it. And I'm aware that I have a choice, right? That it is in fact the door opening,
Right.
when I'm not when I'm just feeling really angry or whatever it is, that there's a choice there. And so it is that's the way the door opens, right? If I didn't notice that, I would just be stuck in my mess forever.
Right.
But I hadn't thought about the second part about, it's true, when everything's going well, then the ego's in its heyday and it's not going to give an inch on anything, right? So everything becomes a fight, even the most wonderful stuff, because there's not enough, or it causes more craving or whatever. I want to write it and put it on my wall, because it makes sense. It's like, it's not anything to fight. It just makes sense. It's like unexpected gift, I guess.
Yeah, in fact, when reading that one specifically reminds me of sitting in Suzuki Sensei and Curtis at the office at the dojo with Suzuki Sensei and Curtis Sensei, and they were talking, and this was right around, I think, 2003. The economy was going really well at the time. The bubble hadn't burst in the housing market, and Sensei was saying, yeah, the economy's good, everything's going good, people don't think they need to train. But then when the economy starts going south, then they think, oh, I better start training, when they should just realize they just need to train all the time. And then having that discussion, because he saw that. He said, yeah, when things are going bad, actually things will, are actually good for you. When things are good, you be careful. You're not seeing everything that's could be coming at you. Get blinders on. But yeah. So anybody else would like to comment or anything? I don't have a story, unfortunately, but I do have a quote that's, I think, actually very appropriate. I'll go ahead and read it. Our minds are all we have. They are all we have ever had. And they are all we can offer others. This might not be obvious, especially when there are aspects of your life that seem in need of improvement, when your goals are unrealized, or you are struggling to find a career, or you have relationships that need repairing, but it's the truth. Every experience you have ever had has been shaped by your mind. Every relationship is as good or as bad as it is because of the minds involved. If you are perpetually angry, depressed, confused, and unloving, or your attention is elsewhere, it won't matter how successful you become or who is in your life. You won't enjoy any of it. Your mind is the basis of everything that you experience and of every contribution you may make to the lives of others. Given this fact, it makes sense to train it. And that was written by Sam Harris. And thanks all for coming tonight, and we'll catch up next week. Domo arigato gozaimashita.